Namaskar. Suswagatam. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? Is audio clear? If somebody can just text us in the chat box saying yes on, on YouTube Live. Okay, thank you. Good morning once again. I, Dhargalkar, welcome each one of you who have joined us today on Microsoft Teams and YouTube Live for this webinar. Today, I'm really proud to be here on behalf of Dhargalkar Technoesis because it's a proud moment for all of us here, recognizing our expertise and leadership in redevelopment. Technoesis has been felicitated with CREDAI MCHI Ratna Award as Master in Redevelopment just yesterday. This is the reason we have to postpone this webinar by a day. Today is the fourth webinar in our series, Successful Redevelopment, and is titled Tendering for Redevelopment. This webinar too has been approved by ECI, and professional engineers registered with ECI will get 2 credit hours for attending. So such candidates may drop us a mail like as usual, and we will confirm their participation. Hope you have either attended the previous webinars or watched our recordings. That will be helpful. We are happy to receive such a good feedback and so many questions. We will address all these questions which we have received on the group on priority today. These questions will also be used to formulate FAQs for the website. Before we actually begin, let's quickly run through a few slides. A lack of transparency leads to distrust and a deep sense of insecurity. How true? This is exactly what hampers a redevelopment project, insecurity and distrust. And that's why transparent tendering process is very crucial. And that's precisely our topic today. We'll just quickly go through the initiatives taken by Technoesis in creating awareness. First is TRH WhatsApp group. We have more than 400 members today. And we are going strong, I think 424 or something to be precise. And as I always say, there's no nuisance on this group. So in case you have not yet joined, please join, because there are PMCs, MC members, CHS members, developers. So all across the section, this group has been found to be useful. Then we have a YouTube channel by the same name, Technoesis Redevelopment Help, and all our previous videos, videos of this series as well as earlier videos which were recorded maybe 1 year back, 2 years back, but are still very relevant and useful today. They're all available on the YouTube channel. So I request everyone to visit the channel, and as I always say, please subscribe to the channel. Then we have the website which we have been talking about and which we are going to discuss in detail, redevelopment.info, which gives us a detailed roadmap right from inception to the handover about the redevelopment. Then we have our Gmail ID, redevelopmenthelp@gmail.com. You can send your queries and questions on that, and we will answer those questions. We include those questions in our webinar. And last but not the least, we have this very successful webinar series, Successful Redevelopment. 3 webinars in this series were conducted last month, which were very well attended and appreciated. We have got very good feedback. Today is the 4th webinar, and the 5th will be tentatively scheduled on Saturday, 26th April. And we will be covering the next topic, which is developer selection. We will quickly go through the recap of the previous webinar, which was about feasibility study and report. We understood what exactly is meant by feasibility and how is it more than mere sketchy calculations. We looked at different types of areas like MOFA carpet area, RERA carpet area, built-up area, construction area, then different types of FSI and TDR. We learned in detail about base carpet areas and how to decide them. Next, we delved into the process of feasibility study, which is a techno-commercial study comprising technical feasibility and financial viability. Technical feasibility consists of documents, approved plans, regulations, FSI, and even constraints. Whereas financial viability is based on construction cost, approval cost, member benefits, revenue, etc. Then we got to know about the actual contents of the feasibility report, which is a result of this feasibility study. Towards the end of the webinar, we learned about three interesting aspects. First is wider applications. How feasibility study can be used as a fair basis for many other applications, such as to address variations and conduct negotiations at later stage of the project. Next, we looked at some key factors which can influence the financial viability, such as FSI potential, previous consumption, selling rate, pending litigations, etc. Third interesting aspect was common mistakes committed in feasibility study. It was a long and in-depth webinar. Those who want to know everything in detail may please watch the video on our YouTube channel. And yes, don't forget to subscribe. And now comes stage 1 of phase 2 as per our website, which is tendering process for redevelopment. Today, Mr. Umesh Dhargalkar will lead us into this subject of tendering process as well as tender itself. There are many new entrants, so for their benefit, though I think everybody knows Mr. Dhargalkar very well by now, but still, let me introduce him in brief. He is a B.Tech Civil and M.Tech Structural from IIT Bombay with 40 years of experience in civil and structural engineering, specifically in buildings, new as well as old and dilapidated. Since last 18 years, he is handling redevelopment projects. He has been regularly conducting certified training programs, public seminars and webinars since last 15 years and has imparted more than 30,000 hours of training to more than 2,000 engineers. Mr. Umesh Dhargalkar is a recipient of 2 national level awards, one as an innovator and another as a trainer in construction industry. And as I mentioned in the beginning, he along with his team received CREDAI MCHI Ratna Award as Master in Redevelopment just yesterday. Over to Mr. Dhargalkar.
Good morning and namaskar. I promise this webinar is not going to be as long as the last one. We had in the last webinar, we covered a lot of things and it was by far in this series perhaps the longest webinar. Of course, there was a lot of value shared there, especially in the last 3 slides, which actually were they covered a lot of insights which we have ourselves learned through our projects. So those of you who missed that last webinar, please have a look at the recording and you'll get a good insight into the aspect of feasibility study and report. Now we have already seen, okay, we have seen how to begin the project. Then we have seen thereafter we have seen how to, after beginning or after starting the project, how to do the feasibility study. So we are in terms of, if we talk in terms of the phases of redevelopment, we have covered phase 1. And we are now going to enter phase 2, which is tendering and developer selection on the basis of what work has been done so far. Now, this phase has got two aspects. The first one is tendering, which we'll be covering in this webinar. And second will be the developer selection, which we'll be covering in the next webinar. Now, let me see, or let me tell you what we are going to cover in this webinar. First and foremost, the broad steps of phase 2, stage 1, that is tendering and bidding. You see, these words are synonymous. Tendering or bidding actually mean the same thing, but the words are used differently when used from different perspectives. Like, for example, when you see it from the society side or the client side, we call it tendering because society is doing the tendering. Whereas when we do it from the developer side, okay, who bid for the project, the same thing is called bidding. So the people or the developers will bid for the tender floated by the society. That's just a little bit of difference between the two words. Then we'll go ahead and we'll see broadly what are the contents of tender documents. A two-bid system which we generally follow in our office. We have found that tendering system should be a two-bid system because that gives you a lot of control which no other system can give you. From there on, we'll move on to how to float the tender. Now, this is a stage where you make the first commitment in the market. Okay, so far, up to preparation of tender documents is something which you do between you, between the managing committee, the members, and the PMC, which is actually the same team. And when you float the tender, then you are announcing it to the world that you are ready to take the project to the next stage of selection of developer and then move on to the further process of the project. Now, after you float a tender and the developers who purchase your tender, okay, when they go through that, they may have some queries. They may want to have some clarifications. So for their understanding and to make, Uma just talked about transparency. Remember, this word is very important. Now, until your PMC comes on board, you have to be transparent between the MC and your members. When the PMC comes on board, you have to be transparent between or among your MC, your members, and the PMC. And when you go to the next stage and you are asking for the developer to come and join, naturally the concept of transparency has to move on to the next stage. And now through the tendering process, you have to be transparent even with the developer, because eventually he's going to come in as a business partner for your project and do the project. So there's nothing that you can hide from him. Okay, because if you do that, then your project may get stuck at a later stage and it may get stuck very badly. So that with that in mind, this pre-bid meeting is very important so that you answer the people's queries and give them the comfort so that they are in a position to bid for your project in a comfortable manner. So what you need to have is a confident offer from the developer, not something like कि भाई हमने पढ़ा नहीं था, ये हमको मालूम नहीं था, इसलिए हमने ऐसा किया, इसलिए ये ऑफर दिया, लेकिन अभी आपने ये पता कर दिया जो टेंडर में नहीं था या हमको समझ में नहीं आया, तो हमारा ऑफर ये नहीं है, ये आज ऐसा है. Don't want that kind of a situation, right? If you have got 100 members in your society, you are doing a project for 100 families. You cannot afford to have or destabilize your project for something like this. So that's why that pre-bid meeting is important. We'll be seeing this aspect of the tendering process in more detail later. Then, after the pre-bid meeting has been conducted, depending on the conduct of the pre-bid meeting, you might want to release some amendments, some clarification, depending on the queries which you ask. So that calls for amendments. So you might want to release amendments. अगर आपने टेंडर एकदम सही किया है और आपने there is nothing new that has come into the PPT, you don't have to release amendment. But if the questions are there, if you feel that certain clarifications have to be given to the bidders, then it would be a wise thing to issue amendments and clarify those things. Thereafter, you give certain time to the bidders. कि आपने उनको टेंडर दिया है, अमेंडमेंट भी दिया है. Now let them do their calculation, let them work on their feasibility, and then they submit their bids to you, or they submit their proposal, or what we commonly call as submit their offers to you. वो ऑफर आने के बाद the next thing is you receive the offers and then you open them. Now how do you open the bids? This is what we will see. And after understanding the process in this manner, we will move on to the website, which is the backbone of this webinar series. And on the website, we will see how the steps actually flow from the beginning of this stage to the end of this stage. And of course, in that we will see what are the milestones. इसमें records कौन से बनते हैं, guide posts कौन से available. There are so many guide posts available in this. This is, remember, this tendering is a very, very important and I would say very delicate kind of a process. And therefore we have given a lot of guideposts there. Now, how many HGMs will be required? हमारे एंगल से इस प्रोसेस में एक ही HGM लगती है. But if you have some issues or if you are not able to come to a proper tendering schedule, or maybe आपका टेंडर फाइनलाइज नहीं होता है or something like that, then perhaps you might need more HGM depending on your project. लेकिन if everything goes well, then this will be the fourth HGM in your journey of redevelopment. इसके पहले जो phase 1 था, उसमें we needed 3 HGMs. This is going to be the fourth one. Now with that, now let me just to put where we are, that in perspective. I will just, this slide I have put in here just to explain that. Here you see the 5 phases through which our project will be going, and a total time frame of something like 60 months, which is a 5 years program. Now in that, what you see is that on phase 2, okay, there is a word tendering, which is the subject matter of today's webinar. Now what you see here is that in stage 1 or in phase 1, okay, where we started the project and did the feasibility study, which was something like, it would have taken 4 months, of course. So some societies take longer also, but typically to do a good and controlled work, if you do that, then you should be able to wrap it up in 4 months time. तो ये आज हम जो बात करें वो 4 महीने की बात है. You can say that so far we have done work of something like 4 months. And now we are at the beginning of the phase 2. Now phase 2 together should take 8 months. Together meaning tendering as well as developer selection, right? But out of those 8 months, the tendering part is going to be something like 3 months. And that is what we are going to discuss today. Now let's see what we got in here. What are the broad steps for phase 2, stage 1, that is tendering? In this process, there are 3 broad steps which are, first is tendering, which is done by the society, okay? Second is bidding, which is done by the developers. And the third step is opening. These are the 3 broad steps. Let's see actually what happens here. Now remember, you got your feasibility report ready, you got your feasibility study done. And on the basis of that, you are moving on to this next step. Redevelopment में एक चीज ना, एक बहुत बड़ी मिस्टेक लोग करते हैं, वो ऐसा है कि they look at this process in a fragmented manner. ये हो गया, ये हो गया, ये हो गया, ये हो गया. What they fail to see as the next step depends on the first step. Like I'll give you an example. आपके प्लॉट के या आपके प्रोजेक्ट के जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स है, प्रॉपर्टी डॉक्यूमेंट्स है, अप्रूव्ड प्लान्स है, एटसेट्रा, उसके ऊपर बेस्ड ऑन दैट a feasibility study is done. Correct? So feasibility study is done based on your property documents. Now tender has to be based on feasibility study. Okay. Then later on, the development agreement has to be based on tender document. Why I have to say this? Because sometimes there was, about 5 years ago, one society had approached me. काम ऐसा था, मतलब they said, आप अभी हमारा टेंडरिंग से चालू करो क्योंकि हमारा फिजिबिलिटी स्टडी हो गया। अरे हो गया ऐसा नहीं होता है ना भैया, मतलब दैट इज समथिंग विच हैज टू फॉर्म द बेसिस ऑफ योर टेंडर। So that ये हो गया, अभी दूसरा चालू करो, फिर वो हो गया, तीसरा चालू करो. It's not like that. They are all connected. So that is something which has to be understood. Second mistake people do, okay, which I would have perhaps discussed later, but I would rather do it now. What they do is that उनको टेंडर मतलब क्या लगता है, वो बिल्डर का जो आता है ना, I talked about feasibility as 3 पेज का डॉक्यूमेंट, ऐसे बहुत सारे पीएमसी देते या बहुत सारी सोसाइटियां करते लाइक दैट। किसी किसी को लगता है कि बिल्डर का जो 7 पेज का 8 पेज का जो ऑफर आता है वही टेंडर है। Okay, it's not so. Tender has to start from the society and the developer has to understand the tender and bid for that. There's a huge difference here. Another misconception is that कि ये ना सब प्रोजेक्ट है ना, ये बाद में जब भी डेवलपमेंट एग्रीमेंट होता है तभी फाइनल होने वाला है, तो उसके पहले इसका आई एम सरप्राइज सम लॉयर्स सेइंग दिस। अरे वो डीए तो बनने वाला है ना, तो टेंडर की क्या, इतना इलेबोरेट टेंडर की क्या जरूरत है? इलेबोरेट टेंडर की जरूरत है बिकॉज इट्स अ टेक्नो कमर्शियल डॉक्यूमेंट। योर प्रोजेक्ट इज गवर्न्ड बाय, रिमेंबर, इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट, which is a different act altogether. Okay, and Indian Contract Act is as much engineering as a part of contractual obligation. तो ये जो टेंडर है, it's a very very important document. In all our projects, we make sure that all our entire project is defined in the tender stage itself. We don't wait for the development agreement to happen to define your project. Project has to be fully defined. Project as well as the bidders, offers and so many things have to be fully defined at the tender stage itself. फिर बाद में DA जब भी बनता है, development agreement, which is also a very important legal document, but it has to be based on tender document. So all those things, all those provisions which are there in the tender have to be taken to the level of the development agreement, where your lawyer will capture what has been committed in the tender and build his development agreement. So just wanted to, make or rather give you those clarification. So again, coming to this slide, the first step would be to prepare tender documents. Who does that? Your PMC. When does he do it? Remember, your PMC will not prepare a tender document, or rather he should not prepare a tender document just like that. You have to authorize him. ये हमारी ऑफिस में हम लोग ये सिस्टम करते हैं। तो the client, which is a society, has to formally request the professional, that is PMC, to make a tender document. And that mandate has to come prior to that from the general body meeting in which you approved your feasibility report. तो वहां जनरल बॉडी में अप्रूव हो जाता है कि ये feasibility report हम लोग अप्रूव करें. Now let us go to the next stage of tendering, and then based on that, the managing committee gives a mandate to the written mandate to the PMC कि आप अभी टेंडर डॉक्यूमेंट और तब जाके टेंडर डॉक्यूमेंट बनाना चाहिए. Strictly speaking, I don't know whether all PMCs follow this or all societies follow this system or not, but this is how it should be. Now, once the PMC has prepared a tender document, which could take time from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Okay, ऐसा नहीं कि भैया remember, I don't know, I have seen that some people do the copy paste thing also, but that's not how it should be. Later on, I'm going to talk about this, that your project must have a strategy and a process, and which has to be very well articulated in your tender document. Okay, so not every tender has to be same. उसमें फर्क होता है depending on your project, depending on your problems, depending on the pros and cons of your project, and depending on the financial viability of the project, so many things. So वो document बनाने के लिए 2 से 4 हफ्ते लग सकते हैं. Once that document is prepared and it is given to the society. Then there is a first discussion which happens between the managing committee and the PMC, because managing committee studies that. Okay. Now remember, if there is already some kind of a litigation or some legal kind of problem, या आपका कन्वेंस नहीं हुआ है और आपका कलेक्टर लैंड है और सम काइंड ऑफ समथिंग विच आपका अगर टाइटल क्लियर नहीं है या आपके इसके ऊपर कोई लीगल इश्यूज है, देन एट दैट टाइम you have to send, you may want to send this tender document to your lawyer. Okay, उस स्टेज पे आप लॉयर के पास भेज सकते हैं और आप बोल सकते हैं भेजने की जरूरत नहीं है. यू कैन टेल योर लॉयर कि टेंडर में डालने के लिए फ्रॉम दैट पर्सपेक्टिव, from your legal position, you can request your lawyer to give you some clauses. Otherwise, at the stage of tendering, there is not much legal work here. Legal work will be required provided there is a legal issue at this stage. And then, depending on that issue, your lawyer can suggest some additional clauses which can be a part of your tender document. So, discuss depending upon the discussion between the managing committee and the PMC, the tender may need to be modified. And then after modification, then what we do is that we suggest that आप एक general body meeting बुलाइए, and in the general body meeting, we explain the tendering process to them. Okay. Some societies give a draft of tender document. I don't think it is necessary, but वो देना है कि भाई हमारा टेंडर कैसे जाने वाला है, सब मेंबर को एक एक कॉपी दे देते. I am nothing against that, but then that is something which perhaps not required, because tender is a professionally prepared document already. But still, if you feel that in the name of transparency, everything should be shared among your members, might as well do that if your members want it. So, but it is important that the tender document, especially its main contents. Okay. There was a question कि एक ने किसी ने मुझे पूछा कि what are the important parts of tender document? Now that question is so big, you know, उसका आंसर इतना बड़ा होगा कि I will not be able to answer that question here. But let me tell you, there are so many things. This question is very pertinent. कि भाई what are the important parts of tender document? Okay. So what we do that when we go to the general body meeting, when we call that, we explain those important parts to the members so that they are in a position to understand and appreciate कि ये point इसमें cover हुआ कि नहीं. Okay. Whereas the entire tender document is not something which is discussed in the general body meeting. Okay. So when you have crossed that stage, the next stage comes, which is floating the tender. Floating the tender meaning going, you say, out in the market to tell everyone that हमारा टेंडर आ रहा है, आप आके इसको भरो. Now remember, you are making a real commitment to the market. So you should be very, very careful when you take this step. आपका टेंडर अच्छे से बनना चाहिए. And this is the first commitment which you are making to the open market. When I say open market, you are making it to the developers. ठीक है? So ideally, in our opinion, there should be a press notice. आपको पेपर में एडवर्टाइजमेंट डालना चाहिए. Some people believe in closed tendering and open tendering. Let me address that point here. लोग क्या बोलते हैं, अरे वो टेंडर बनाने में ना बहुत टाइम जाता है या टेंडर फ्लोट करने में अंडर बहुत टाइम जाता है, इसलिए अपन उसको क्लोज टेंडर करते हैं. आई हैव नेवर सीन एनी सोसाइटी सेविंग टाइम बाय डूइंग क्लोज टेंडर. आप पूरा ओपन टेंडर करो, सबको बुलाओ, सब कुछ करने के बाद भी आपका टेंडर, पूरा टेंडर प्रोसेस 6 to 8 months में with all due diligence it can be completed and you can get a developer on board from the time when you start, when you have finished feasibility report up to the time when you get the developer on board. 8 महीने में सब कुछ हो सकता है. There is no need to take shortcuts to save time, because ये shortcuts बाद में अपने को बहुत महंगे पड़ते हैं. So I am of the opinion that no matter what kind of your project is, it's a good practice to float an open tender, put an advertisement in the newspaper and do so many things which I'll tell you later. And even for a small project, हमने 600 स्क्वायर मीटर के प्रोजेक्ट के लिए भी टेंडर किया है, और वो बाद में फिर हमारे क्लाइंट को पता चला कि that person said कि it was a very good thing that we did tender because we got a very structured offer, बहुत अच्छा ऑफर मिला commercially also as well as because of these tenders, all those things have been, whatever we have said, have been accepted. So this is the first part, which is tendering. You have floated a tender. Now after floating, then your society will sell tenders at some tender fee, something 10,000, 25,000, 50,000, even 1 lakh, depending on the commercial viability of the project. So the developers will pay that money, okay, and collect the tender document. Now there is certain period for selling the tender document, after which the sale is closed. और जो भी लोग टेंडर लेके गए, आपकी मैनेजिंग कमेटी को ये करना चाहिए कि उनके नाम, only names should be displayed in the name of transparency on your notice board. Okay, so maybe 12 people, just some number. So 12 developers came, paid for your tender, and they took the tender, which means that 12 developers have shown primary interest in your project. I'm saying primary interest, right? Then after they have taken the tender, they will study and they may have queries, for which then we will have a pre-bid meeting. Okay, in this pre-bid meeting, we will answer their questions. Now remember, this pre-bid meeting, suppose 12 developers have taken the tender. This is one meeting of your managing committee and your PMC with all the 12 developers at the same time. So every developer may ask the question, or even your PMC may explain first. It begins like that you first explain, your PMC will explain the how the tender has been structured, what are the salient points about the project, how the society expects you to bid for the project. ये सब थोड़ा introduction हो जाने के बाद, then the financial requirements, the commercial bid, will come to that. That is explained to the members, and we ask them, now do you have any queries? And if they have queries, then we answer them. Remember, if there are 12 developers, even if one developer asks the query, all 12 developers will know, and there is a good interaction. It is a healthy kind of deliberations between the developers and the managing committee and PMC. And after this pre-bid meeting has been conducted, depending on the deliberations, if some more insight is to be given, some more explanation is to be given, clarifications are to be issued, or depending on the deliberation, then the clarifications are issued in form of amendments to the tender. And when amendment is issued, remember that amendment also becomes a part of tender document. Okay, that also becomes as important as the original tender document. Now, after amendments have been issued, then the developers, on the basis of the first tender as well as the amendments, they will do their internal calculations and work on the project, and then they will submit their bids to you, or society will receive bids from them. It's possible that you sold 12 tenders, but you got only 8 bids, because primarily 12 developers were interested. But later on, after this thing, after going through the tender and everything, checking out different aspects, perhaps only eight of them were interested. So that's a typical scenario. अगर 8 डेवलपर लोगों ने आपके लिए बिड सबमिट किया है, okay, sealed bid, so then again, for transparency, the MC should put up a list of those 8 developers on your notice board, right? So we are through with the bidding process. Then let us go to the third part, that is opening the bids and handing over to PMC. I'll explain this part. Open the bids. Now bids are opened in an open meeting. Open meeting का मतलब ऐसा है, general body meeting नहीं, but a meeting where any member is allowed to sit. ओके, सो मीटिंग में कैसा होता है, आई विल एक्सप्लेन लिटिल लेटर, थोड़ा डिटेल में, लेकिन ओपनिंग में ऐसा होता है कि अ सील बीड इज ओपन, एवरी सील बीड ओपन इज ओपन one by one, okay, in presence of those managing committee as well as those members of your society who would like to witness that. I'm saying witness. They can only come there to witness that. Okay? And also, out of those 8 bidders who have submitted their bids to you, they can also attend the meeting to understand. क्योंकि ये क्या है ना, transparency, remember now, transparency now has to be with the developer also. So all the bidders they should also be allowed to be present for the meeting to witness that. Now remember, in this meeting, the only thing that happens is that the bids are open and certain announcements are made by your PMC or your managing committee, but your members, all the PMCs, they don't ask questions. They only come to witness that. And this is not a general body meeting, but it's nothing less than a general body meeting because every member is allowed to attend that. And once the bids are open, now the next thing, actually, once the bids are open, what I wanted to explain to you in this webinar, that part is covered up to this. And then now these bids have to be scrutinized, analyzed, and kind of studied. And then these are handed over to the PMC for the further work of analysis and selection of developer, which is the subject matter of our next webinar. And again, once this entire exercise is done, then whatever progress has happened in this phase should be put on your society's website. I don't know how many of you people have your own society website for redevelopment. I would suggest that it's a good thing to have a website, and it ensures good amount of transparency and it makes the life of the managing committee a lot easier. मतलब उनको सबको बोलने का जरूरत नहीं है. It's something which they can disclose on the website, and then everyone gets to see that. Now, I talked about tender documents. Now let me explain to you what are the tender documents. Now, what is a tender document or a bid document? As I again said, tender document bolo ya bid document bolo is one and the same thing. A tender is a formal, detailed document issued by society that specifies its requirements, terms, and conditions for the project. Okay, I will tell you something very simple first here. I'll explain this point to you like this. If I am a society, what I do is that in tender, पहले मैं बोलता हूँ मैं कौन हूँ. I have to first say who am I, who is calling for that. Who am I meaning? I have to give my particulars. Like say what is the name of my society? How many members I have got? Okay, what is the size of the plot? What is the shape of the plot? Whether PR card is there in my name? Whether I got approved plans? Okay, whether there is any litigation on my project. So मैं कैसा हूँ, मेरा plot कैसा है, as a society, how am I? This is the first step, because you are floating the tender. Second point is you are telling the bidders कि हमको आप में क्या, what do we want? What is it that we want from you? पहले तो हम as a developer, we want you to be having so much experience, having so much financial standing, and all that thing. So how you want the developer to come? Third point, what kind of commercial offers I want from you? How I am looking at you from the commercial point. Fourth point is specifications and the work. मुझे आपसे मतलब how I want the developer to work for me, under which terms and conditions. And fifth point is that how am I going to run the selection process to select a developer. So every bidder should know कि जब भी उसका bid जाता है तो उसके आगे उसका processing कैसे होने वाला है. So this is what I explained to you step by step. It's something which goes into the tender document, as which is a formal document. Never make a mistake of thinking कि वो डेवलपमेंट एग्रीमेंट ही फॉर्मल आता है तब तक टाइम पास होता है, बिल्कुल नहीं. ओके, आई नो वन सोसाइटी, आई वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट, आई मीन दे हैड अप्रोच्ड मी अबाउट लास्ट वीक. क्या है पता है क्या? जैसे हमको ये डेवलपर नहीं चाहिए जो whatever the developer which they had selected. We don't want this developer. They want to tell him after 2.5 years, no? After giving him tender, after giving a letter of intent like that. And they are under the impression, हमारा डेवलपमेंट एग्रीमेंट किधर हुआ है तो हम उसको टर्मिनेट कर सकते हैं. नॉट सो. डेवलपमेंट एग्रीमेंट नहीं हुआ इसलिए कुछ भी बाइंडिंग नहीं है. इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट. रिमेंबर दिस. Tender remains binding. Until a development agreement is signed and executed, tender will remain a binding document between you and the developer. So never think of that something small or informal. It's very, very formal. So as it's like, you know, it's not easy that you just development agreement नहीं हुआ इसलिए आप उसको developer को terminate कर सकते हैं. ऐसा नहीं. Of course, development agreement हो गया. So even the developer has got something to say, or you also have. That's a different thing altogether. So it's a formal, detailed document wherein all your project has to be completely defined and wherein you have to specify your requirements and the terms and conditions under which you want the developers to come and do your project. Now, in other words, it gives the clarity about society's position and requirement. When I say position, I mean legal position, contractual position, commercial position, all position. Okay. So, and their requirements. Then secondly, it forms a uniform basis for selecting a developer. This is extremely important. If you don't have a developer, then every developer will give you his proposal. सब में सब कुछ वेरिएशन होगा, कुछ कॉमन नहीं होगा. ओके, द टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस बहुत ही कम होंगे, कुछ कोई लिखा ही नहीं. आई एम सेइंग टिपिकली 8, 10, 12 पेज का पूरा डॉक्यूमेंट, उसमें कमर्शियल भी आ जाता है. सो एवरीवन विल गिव यू दैट काइंड ऑफ अ प्रपोजल इन हिज ओन वे, एंड हिज ओन वे is not a uniform basis, and you will not be able to do what with what. So that is why we have to have a tender which forms a uniform basis for selecting a developer. We say everyone is coming with this benchmark. So that's a second advantage of the tender document, and it's a fair and transparent process. We have to be fair and transparent with each other and with the developer. Now, as I said, it should be structured and strategized based on feasibility study. जब आपने feasibility study किया, I must have explained to you that in the feasibility report, okay, through the feasibility report, you should understand not only the techno-commercial potential of your project, but you should also understand the pros and cons of your project. क्या अच्छा है और क्या अच्छा नहीं है, and जो अच्छा है उसको उसके ऊपर कैपिटलाइज करना, यू हैव टू बिल्ड ऑन दैट. और जो अच्छा नहीं है उसको नॉट टू हाइड दैट बट टू स्ट्रेटेजाइज दैट इज समथिंग व्हिच हैज टू बी डन इन अ टेंडर. आई विल नॉट इलैबोरेट बट आई विल गिव यू जस्ट एग्जांपल, वेरी सिंपल एग्जांपल, कि वी हैव एक प्रोजेक्ट हमारा था, हमारा नहीं था पहले, मतलब इट वाज समबडी एल्सेस प्रोजेक्ट. सो व्हेन इट केम टू अस, इट वाज अंडर litigation. There was a court case going on, which eventually got transformed into an arbitration case. Okay, and वो project आएगा कैसा, and the building was demolished. Remember this, the building was demolished. People were staying in rented flats, not getting rent. इतना सब था, so the situation was extremely bad. Situation was extremely bad. Okay, now the question is, we advise the society that let's do a tender, but the question was, अरे पहले का litigation है, building demolition, अभी कौन सा developer है? Why do tender? Why not approach this, that? They tried approaching different developers, and every developer, you know, kind of जैसे हो गया, like, you know, when you are approaching, he took, I would say, maybe undue advantage of the situation on, you know, every developer used to say, हम ये करेंगे, हम वो करेंगे, पहले developer का so many things. Okay. But when we took the project, उस टाइम पे क्या होता था और आज भी ऐसा ही है, रिमेंबर दिस, कि आफ्टर यू स्टार्ट अ प्रोजेक्ट, द स्टेज ऑफ डिमोलिशन comes up almost after 1.5 to 2 years. Earliest, remember, since you start the project, the stage of demolition comes up almost 2 years. उसके बाद 3 साल का प्रोजेक्ट बनता है, correct? 2 years, 2 years. So every developer, when he bids for a new project, for him, the project becomes a reality after 2 years in the real commercial sense. So what we did here is that we projected or rather we positioned the project in such a way. So we said this project is ready, सब vacate हो गया, सब कुछ आपको आगे करना है. And we made another statement saying, do not worry about the legal implications because all the legal responsibility is being taken by the society. You are not to be a part of this. Now these two statements completely change the scenario, and the project actually was acquired by, such a project was acquired by a public listed company and then successfully completed. So this is what I mean by structuring and strategizing your tender depending on आपके प्रोजेक्ट में क्या अच्छा है और क्या अच्छा नहीं है या क्या बुरा है. So you have to understand that, your PMC has to understand that, and he has to give you that insight how to position yourself. This is extremely important. And this is something which you cannot do in, when you take simple open tender, उसमें नहीं होता है. Okay. So that was, I mean, I've got many examples like that, but for just to explain that concept, I give you this one, which is my favorite one. Now, when we do what is a tender document? We have seen that, but when we do tendering, we do it. What is that? Tender document. We do it in a two-bid system. Again, we call this a structured approach. What we do is that we segregate the technical part, or say technical, contractual, and everything, all other parts, specifications, everything. We segregate that from the commercial part. So we have two bids. One is the technical bid, and the second is the commercial bid. In terms of, if I have to say, in terms of content, technical bid is something like, say, maybe 80 pages. 80 pages of single spacing. नहीं तो कोई developers है जो बोलेंगे 80 pages मतलब in double spacing with big bold, so it the tender become. ऐसा कोई जरूरी नहीं कि भाई बड़ा टेंडर है, so many pages means it's a better tender, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं. But yes, technical bid. Thank you. And then the second is the commercial bid. Now, let me tell you what commercial bid is. I will be showing you a commercial bid a little later. Commercial bid will be something like 6-7 pages, जिसमें हम केवल कमर्शियल चीज लिखते हैं. We talk about extra carpet area, we talk about corpus, we talk about rent, etc. in real terms there in numbers. Okay, और वो सब छोड़ के पूरा प्रोजेक्ट का whatever I explained कि how is the society, what they want from the developer, how the developer has to come, how the process of selection will go, how the project has to happen, what are the conditions under which he has to work, what could be the sequence of work, what would be the important clauses there in terms of termination, etc. What would be the specification, सब चल के technical bid में आ जाता है. And the logic is this, that in the commercial bid, there is one undertaking which says that I have gone through the technical bid, and this is what the bidder says or the developer says, I have gone through the technical bid and I agree and accept each and every part thereof of that, and after accepting that I am quoting for this commercial bid. So we keep these two things separate. Now technical bid is used to evaluate the credentials of the developer. Developer कैसा है, उसका offer कैसा ही नहीं. Developer कैसा है is an exercise by itself, and developer का offer कैसा है is the commercial bid. Never mix these two things, otherwise you will end up selecting the wrong developer and then regret it for the rest of your life. Now another thing why commercial bid is kept separate is this. You see, after a developer gives you an offer, negotiations are going to happen. We are going to discuss that, have meetings with them. So many things are going to happen. Okay. and the commercial terms are going to change. आपने starting जहां से किया वो थोड़ा change होने वाला ही है. Changing for the better of the society. So the commercial bids get modified. Okay. You might have asked for a rent of certain amount, but then by the time, you know, the formalities are completed, everything, you feel नहीं थोड़ा rent ज्यादा करना है, कुछ corpus कम करना है, whatever it is. So when that happens, okay, when that happens, when the commercial bid changes, and when the commercial bid is different, it becomes easier to handle that because the technical bid doesn't change, the terms and conditions don't change. Okay, so that is why we have a two-bid system. And as I explained to you earlier, the tender document is the technical bid and the commercial bid, and the amendments issued during bidding period. अगर आपने bidding period मतलब till the time when the developer submits his bid to you, उस time तक अगर आपने suppose 2 बार amendment issue किए, so both these amendments become part of your tender document. So this is what a tender document is. Now, for that person who asked me that question, what are the important clauses in tender document? All those important clauses which are there in the technical bid, there are many important clauses. In fact, I can explain them to you, but आज के webinar में वो हो नहीं पाएगा because there are so many of them. There are so many. So we will have that in that insight some other time. But I will definitely show you a commercial bid, which is easier to understand. And as I explained to you, it is binding on both parties until development agreement is signed. So tender document is binding on the society as well as the developer, as well as the bidder. Remember, tendering process has a validity period of something like 6 months. So within those 6 months, all people who have bid for your project will be binding on them. Thereafter, you may select a developer. Okay. After you have selected a developer and returned the earnest money deposit of the remaining, say I talked about you getting 8 bids, right? एक को आपने select किया, तो 7 का आपने earnest money deposit return किया. So now from that time onward, the tender becomes binding on the society and that one bidder who's your selected developer. So now let me see कि technical bids की broad contents क्या है. Not important points, you know, because important points is a big list and they should be explained to you with कि why that point is important. अगर आपने नहीं किया तो क्या होगा, or why, how that clause is to be framed. So that could be a bigger deliberation. Right now, I'll just go through the broad contents of technical bid. To begin with, there is a tender notice, which is a formal notice given by the society to anyone and everyone when you go out in the market and float the tender. This is from floating that when you go that, you know, tender notice में दिखाया जाता है कि भाई किस तरह से tender float हो रहा है, what are the dates, and then the instructions for bidding, how the tender is to be collected, how it is to be, you know, what are the documents which will be given with the tender documents, then how the bid has to come, in which envelope, what is to be put, what is the earnest money deposit and things like that. Now for this, there was a question about what is an earnest money deposit. So I'll answer that now only. So you see, earnestness in English means what? कि मुझे मतलब ऐसा है कि I am so much earnest about your project. Means I am very keen on your project. I am very serious on your project. Now that earnest has to be seen in tangible terms, also in financial terms. So it's a customary practice that every bidder has to give an earnest money deposit to the society. What it means is that if he withdraws on his own, okay, within that 6 months period, then his deposit will not be returned. Okay. Now, how much can that uninvested money deposit, how much can it be? It can be 1 lakh, it can be 5 lakh, it can be 10 lakh, it can be 25 lakhs also I have seen, depending on what is the financial viability of your project. Okay, these are the things which have to be decided with your PMC. So this is one part of the content of tender document. Then we also have to say how the selection process is going to be. Basic eligibility criteria. Right. Remember, when you select a developer, always remember that you actually don't select a developer in the normal meaning of selection process. What you do is a process of step-by-step elimination. If you've got 8 bits, what you do is that from the 8 bits, you may select or you may shortlist 5. So what it means is that वो 3 लोग हैं, उनको आपने क्या किया? Eliminate किया. Then 5 might become 3, and then 3 might become 1. So it's process of step-by-step elimination. Although we call it a selection process, that's what it's doing. So what are the eligibility criteria? मतलब हमारा जो डेवलपर है वो किस तरह का होना चाहिए, उसका एक्सपीरियंस कितना होना चाहिए, how many projects he should have completed in order to qualify for bidding for our project. How we are going to evaluate, so step by step, whatever I explained to you, shortlist, or rather, first shortlist, then interviews, then second shortlist, then maybe, negotiations, then perhaps another shortlist, then site visits, after site visits, then presentation to your members. These could be the, different steps of selecting a developer. And finally, what could be the evaluation and rejection criteria? This is what we specify. Then we also ask the developer, कि भाई we want so much of information about your company. So what is that information required? Your organization, number of projects, your financials. We give a big, something like in our tender, we give something like a checklist of some 20 items which they are supposed to submit, like their balance sheets, net worth certificate, list of projects completed, IODs, so many, which will help us, evaluate his bid and do our due diligence based on the document. So हम लोग उसका एक checklist भी अलग से देते हैं, so that when the developer submits his bid, he has got the checklist ready and he knows कि भाई ये देना है, he can check on that and submit those documents. So this is the bidder's information. What information is required? This is also put in the tender document. Then we have to share the information about our project. Okay, bidders का जैसा है तो अपना भी बताना है. तो what is the plot area? Whether we have got PR card in our name, what is the status of our conveyance, how many members are there, what are their base carpet areas. Now, under which regulations you want them to bid? Like today, everyone talks about different regulations. There was a time, not so long ago, कि लोग ज़्यादा उसके the kind of, the regulation which people used to adopt was squarely 33(7)(b). But now people talk about 33(9) if your project is, if your plot is so big, or 33(11), 33(20)(b), then 33(12)(b), then the combination of two schemes, there's so much. So if you have got particular, see, it's like this. Your plot may be a big plot, I'll say it may be on a I would say a broad road, which entitles you to lot of FSI. Maybe if you go for 33(11), you get an FSI of 4 plus 35%, which is a big FSI. But at the same time, Jada FSI meaning better financial returns for you, but it also means a lot of congestion in your society. So many new members coming. If you have got 100 or existing members staying now, maybe with 3311, you might be inviting 300 more. तो आप 100 ही रह गए, नए लोग आएंगे 300. Do you want that kind of a situation? Of course, if the feasibility of your project, commercial viability or the financial viability is not really good, okay, then you should definitely go for such schemes which would give you higher financial benefit. But otherwise, if you are really positioned well, आपका सब फाइनेंशियल वायबिलिटी बहुत अच्छा है, then you might decide कि हमको ज्यादा एफएसआई वाली स्कीम में नहीं जाना है, which is what you have to specify some in this. Or some special instructions. Special instructions meaning what? Like if you are having a collector land and a large amount of payment has to be made upfront, then you can say this is the sequence which will be going. You will be paying this money and this. So you put your special conditions there. Or another condition could be something like this, like we are doing one project where the plot is very large, something like that, more than 18,000 square meters, and there's a road runs. There are two plots and the road runs in between. So we have put a condition when we say that all right now the existing members are staying in both the plots on either side of the road. But we have put a condition that after redevelopment, we want that all the existing members should be put on the larger plot, slightly larger plot. The other plot is not too small, and all the new members will be in the other plot. Of course, depending on the feasibility, कुछ नए member हमारे plot में भी आएंगे. So what happens? And then the other plot will be उसका conveyance अलग करके हम आपको दे देंगे. This could be your strategy, which I explained to you a little earlier. Okay, उसको लेके हम इसे स्पेशल इंस्ट्रक्शन उनको दे सकते हैं. सो वी आर टेलिंग द डेवलपर कि हमको हमारा प्रोजेक्ट किस तरह से करना है, आपको आगे इस तरह से करना है. So this could be special instructions, and sometimes you may have to disclose some unpleasant thing also. Okay, because you cannot keep things under wrap और बाद में बोल रहा है कि हमको मालूम ही नहीं था, ऐसा नहीं. So if there are some, like say if there is a litigation there, or if there is some defect in your revenue documents, that has to be disclosed. That has to be disclosed. Okay. So this is all you have to provide to the as the information from the society to the prospective bidders. And of course, with that, you have to give the property documents and approved plans, etc. जो भी डॉक्यूमेंट के ऊपर आपने फिजिबिलिटी रिपोर्ट बनाया है, all those documents, जितना आपको शेयर कर सकते हैं ना, उतना आप करो. And then make a statement in your tender document. This is all we have, and we have shared everything, and we do not have any more information with us. इसके ऊपर भी आपको कुछ चाहिए तो then the developer, the bidders are supposed to obtain such additional data at their cost and their effort. So this puts you in a good position from the contract perspective. Then in the technical bit, we also have to specify the scope of work and the sequence of operation. कैसे होना चाहिए, and the time frame. Time frame should be specified, remember, for pre-execution period, meaning आपने developer select किया तो वहां से लेके till the time when you vacate, अलग से time frame specify करना, अलग से. Because if you do and put that condition, suppose like for example you specify a time frame from the selection of developer to the time when you say vacate, say one year specify here. Okay, maybe you specify some additional grace period, something like 4 months all they do, but let there be some condition. Otherwise, it can so happen that your project is, कुछ आपने vacate ही नहीं किया, कुछ भी नहीं किया, 3 साल हो गए, 4 साल हो गए, 5 साल हो गए, and you are not in a position to terminate the contract with the developer because you don't have this clause. Of course, this is one of the important points. There are so many, but I just thought of it. So then comes general and special conditions of contract. which would be 60, 70, so many of them, or maybe 100. Okay, how the project is to be done, about FSI, about approval of plans, about how the project is to be done, about the when will you vacate? What are the conditions to be fulfilled before you vacate? बहुत कुछ होता है. I am only giving you a broad outline here. And specific legal clauses if necessary. As I explained to you, you don't need to have a lawyer on board at the stage of tender document, strictly speaking. But if you already have a legal issue, okay, some kind of a legal issue, like you don't have a clear title, or कोई एक केस आपकी यहाँ चल रही है. I will tell you one point for those of you. See, कोर्ट में केस चल रही है और प्रोजेक्ट भी हो रहा है, ऐसा होता है. ऐसा नहीं कि कोर्ट में केस चल रही है प्रोजेक्ट नहीं होता है. We have done projects like that. As long as there is no actual stay on your project can happen. Remember that. So the exact position, legal position, can be disclosed. Okay, and for that, if you have some such situation, then you can ask your lawyer to provide some additional clauses which can be put in the tender document. Then there are amenities which have to be specified, work specifications, approved brands, कौन से brands आपको use करने हैं, electrical specifications, civil specifications, which materials are to be used, all that can be put in tender document. And finally, ये सब हो जाने के बाद एक form of tendering or undertaking, wherein the developer has to sign that when he's submitting his bid. Okay, I have agreed to all these conditions, etc. So much in brief about a technical bid. Okay, if we really end up doing an insightful webinar on the details of technical bid, if you see, I did ask you, we have already done 3 webinars here. We are doing the 4th one. I would really love to have feedback from you on when we open this, after this webinar, when we will open the group or through email or whatever, whichever way you want. I would like to know how this series is going. And if you got some suggestions to make, please go ahead and make. If there are certain things which you want to be covered in the later part of, or say, some further seminars or something, let me know. If there's something I can do about that, I'll definitely do. So much about that in technical bid. Now, इतना सब देने के बाद कमर्शियल बिड में क्या है, हमको ये बताना है कि हमको क्या ऑफर चाहिए commercial bid. But remember this, we do not want only a commercial bid in isolation, जिसमें developer बोलता है I don't agree with your technical bids. I don't want it. I want the developer or the bidder to agree to the the conditions or everything, that all the provisions of the technical bid, and with that basis, I want him to quote his commercial offer. Not only a commercial offer. Up technical bid हमको नहीं, that is unacceptable. Okay, so first thing in a commercial bid are what we call as members benefits. Member को क्या मिलता है? So additional carpet area, corpus, car parks, rent, brokerage, transportation. If you look carefully, there are 3 underlined words: additional carpet area, corpus, and car park. Actually speaking, these are your real benefits, tangible benefits. Rest of them, meaning the rent, brokerage, transportation, are actually your expenses for which you are provided. ये आपके benefit नहीं. And that is why आपका rent जितना है उतना ही लीजिए. Rest of it you have to take as additional corpus. Remember, what I explained to you in the feasibility study is this, that your entire project stands on your plot area. And then certain benefits are calculated by the developer and given to you as total benefits. उसी में से सब आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी होता है, उसी में से आपको कार्पेट एरिया मिलता है, उसी में से कॉर्पस मिलता है, उसी में से. So never be under the impression that you will get higher rent as well as higher corpus. You will get higher rent at the cost of higher corpus, or at the cost of corpus, or you will get higher corpus at the cost of rent. So when you want a rent, आप बोलो कि मुझे, if you want a rent of say 70 rupees a square foot of your existing area, and if your existing area is say 500 square feet, you are asking for a rent of 35,000 rupees per square foot to begin with. Of course, which will go on increasing 10% etc. और बाद में वो अलग बात है. But अगर आपने 70 के बदले में 80 किया, ज्यादा रेंट चाहिए, तो you are asking for 40,000 rupees as rent. Now what happens is that to that extent your corpus will be reduced automatically. Secondly, what will happen is that if you are taken more rent and if you actually pay less rent, then you pay tax on the balance. So 40,000 minus 35,000, 5,000 के ऊपर आप tax भरने वाले. So you should be very careful when you say आपके जो expenses cover करने हैं ना, वो जितने आपके expenses है उतने ही cover करो. Rest of it you should ask for higher corpus or higher carpet, additional carpet area. Now, what we do? Oh, let me see what is the next item here. Yeah, I'll come to this point. One of the two should be kept open. I'll come to this point a little later. So we ask for how much carpet area the developer would give or how much corpus he would give, and then we specify हमको कितने car park चाहिए. Even if your BMC norms specify your flat is so small that the BMC norms specify that you are entitled to less than one car park, or you are entitled to a car park which is say between दो लोगों के बीच में, दो मेंबर के बीच में एक कार पार्क या चार मेंबर के बीच में एक कार पार्क. ऐसी प्रोविजंस बीएमसी के जो प्रोविजंस है कार पार्क के बारे में उसमें है. बट एट द सेम टाइम इफ द कमर्शियल फिजिबिलिटी इज सच कि आपको एक एक कार पार्क मिलने का भी प्रोविजन हो सकता है. इवन इफ योर BMC entitlement is like this, they say these are the provisions. However, the developer, okay, at his discretion can provide one car park minimum for every member. So even if your flats are small, you can still ask for one car park per member, provided the commercial feasibility works well. And in all our projects, जो भी हमने प्रोजेक्ट किया अभी तक, उसमें we have not shared car parks, meaning every car park, every member has got one car park. So that is something which you can do. Rent, brokerage, and transportation are the actual amounts which you will be required to spend, which you can ask. What we do in our tender is that हम लोग rent specify करते हैं. For example, if we specify 70 rupees a square foot as the rent, हम बोलते हैं हमको 70 ही चाहिए. Brokerage we may say about 140 rupees one time. 70 rupees rent is per month, okay? Per month, 70 rupees per square foot per month for the first 12 years, which increases by 10% next year. That is how it is put. Brokerage will be something like double of 70, 140 rupees or something like that, but one time, not per month. And transportation will be something like, 30,000 to 40,000 rupees per member, regardless of their existing carpet area. ये हम लोग स्पेसिफाई करते हैं. स्पेसिफाई करते हैं मतलब इसे कि आप हमको इतना दे दो. I will show you that how we do that later. And then we say, having said that, if we want more, if we are focused on more carpet area, then we specify corpus. Corpus हमको let's say 2,500 rupees a square foot out there. So 2,500 into 500 square feet अगर आपका area है, so that will amount to 1.5 lakhs. So corpus also we demand, and then we say corpus हमको इतना दे दो, rent हमको इतना दे दो, एक कार पार्क दे दो, minimum brokerage इतना दे दो, transportation इतना दे दो, and इतना देने के बाद, depending on what you can actually share with us from the business potential, you give us the maximum additional carpet area. So this is something we say open, keep it open. If you read 79A very carefully, there also they say between the carpet area and corpus, only specify one thing and specify the other thing and keep it open. Specify one thing and keep the other thing open. इसके पीछे का क्या लॉजिक है, इसके पीछे का क्या स्ट्रेटेजी है, हाउ दिस हेल्प्स द सोसाइटी, आई विल एक्सप्लेन in more detail little later in the next slide. So apart from member benefits, what you also specify are the compensations or reimbursements. Now PMC आपका है, lawyer आपका है, you might have hired if you have some litigation is running, you might have hired another lawyer, or if you have hired a tax related consultant और फाइनेंशियल कंसल्टेंट, जो भी आपके कंसल्टेंट है उनकी जो फी आपको देनी है, दैट इज ऑल्सो समथिंग विच यू कैन आस्क एज कॉम्पेंसेशन फ्रॉम द डेवलपर. सो एंड यू डोंट से हमारे लॉयर का या हमारे पीएमसी का फी दे दो, नॉट लाइक दैट. यू हैव टू स्पेसिफाई इन क्लियर टर्म्स कि so many lakhs rupees is to be paid to, or crores of rupees to be paid to these so many societies consultants which have to come from you. You have to specify that amount. If you don't specify the amount and if you say आपको PMC का fee आपको देना है, then later on when the developer comes, he will say कि हमको PMC की जरूरत ही नहीं है, या तो मैं तो इतना ही देता हूँ तो फिर 10 लाख ही देता हूँ. Then this is typically what happens. टिपिकल 10 लाख मैं देता हूँ बिकॉज आपने बोला नहीं था. अगर आपने बोला नहीं है और 10 लाख वो देता है, then you have to look for a PMC who will fit in that 10 lakh. तो फिर आपका काम ठीक से नहीं होगा, because you will not be able to hire a good PMC or a lawyer or any other professional, okay, because their fees will be higher. So whatever it is, if you have already hired a PMC, if you have hired a lawyer also, or make a provision, a good amount of provision for these fees, so that the developer knows upfront मेरे को कितना देना है. Okay, the real fees which will have to be paid to the profession. Now, the cost incurred by the society. Now, so far, when you have come to this stage, you might have incurred some costs. You might have incurred 5 lakh rupees as towards the survey or to obtain the various property documents, or to do some rectification in your property records. आपने suppose 5 lakh खर्चा किया है. Specify that amount. In our tender, when I say transparency has to be really like that. Professional fees का है, बता दो कितना है. So many lakhs. Cost incurred by society, we want so much. If you want corpus for society, which is very unlikely, I mean not corpus for member, ऊपर लिखा है member benefits. Second point is corpus for society, so that it goes and sits in the society's accounts. अगर आपको ऐसा provision करना है, I'm not saying people do it. Then how much corpus you want for the society? And settlement costs are upfront costs, which also you have to specify. For example, let's say you have your conveyance is not in favor. कोई एक developer के पास वो conveyance है. But developer says कि you give me 5 crore rupees and I will give you the conveyance. So you know now what is the cost of conveyance. Without conveyance, you cannot do the project, because you'll not be able to sign the agreement. आप tender float कर सकते हैं, remember this. आप tender float कर सकते हैं without having conveyance, but you will not be having of course, with that disclosure, proper disclosure in the tender document, and by laying down, the sequence of operation in such a way where this has been taken care of, कर सकते हैं. But you will not be able to sign the development agreement because you are not the owner of plot. And if the earlier developer says, you give me 5 crore rupees, I'll give you the conveyance. In that case, you specify that cost as a settlement cost. 5 crore देना है developer के लिए. एकदम clear. So your commercial bid should look like number, so many numbers, which you are specifying, and then you are asking the developer, इतना हमने तो specify किया, इसको देने के बाद आप, जैसे हमने बोला ना, technical bid सब agree करने के बाद, then you have to give us a commercial offer. You don't say कि भाई technical bid agree नहीं किया है और मैं आपको commercial bid दे रहा हूँ. Similar logic works here. What you say कि whatever costs we have given you have to agree to them, and then you have to give us कि भाई एडिशनल एरिया आप कितना दे सकते हैं. Okay, that is how a tender should go. Now, yes, what I meant by corpus for society is कि भाई corpus आपने सोसाइटी के लिया है for its future maintenance etc. अगर आपने लिया तो. Then let me come to the securities part. People always think about कि there is always some kind of uncertainty in the project. Suppose the developer doesn't perform, what happens to my project? And people always think about bank guarantee, bank guarantee, bank guarantee. Not so. There are multiple levels of security. उसमें भी आज थोड़ा बात करने के लिए मेरे पास I'll not be able to elaborate. But some of the securities, like say bank guarantee is definitely one of them. Then developer sale area on which you can put a lien. Oh, lien कितना है, lien कितना effective है is also a point of contention. Okay, like you might ask for lien in your own project, but you have to, in that case, you have to make sure कि at least वो lien में जितने फ्लैट आप ले रहे हैं, कितना स्क्वायर फुट एरिया आप ले रहे हैं, that area has to be covered in the first RD. Or you can take a lien on the developer some other property where OC has been received. There are so many options available. Or in pre-execution period, I strongly advise you, okay, that I have seen lot of projects failing in pre-execution period. जो आगे execution level तक जाते ही नहीं. आप एग्रीमेंट साइन ही नहीं करती है, या डेवलपर साइन नहीं करता है, साइन करता है तो आईडी नहीं लाता है. देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स. सो in order to make sure that the developer performs for pre-execution period, you have to specify some kind of security. What we normally do is this: अगर हमने अर्नेस्ट मनी डिपॉजिट 5 लाख रुपए लिया है, then what we do is that when we select a developer, we ask the developer to pay additional 45 lakh on selection. Whereas EMD सब लोग देते हैं, but we have selected a developer, what you can say is that we want additional 45 lakh rupees deposit, which makes it 5 plus 45, so 50 lakh, which will remain with us for your pre-execution period of something like 6 months or 8 months or 1 year, whatever we want to give. And if you do not perform in that period, then this 50 lakh we will not return. So this is a very tangible security. It's not a very big security also. And this is where, so that the builder will be forced to perform. This security, in my opinion, as a PMC, is extremely important, more than the bank guarantee. Because bank guarantee comes into picture when at the time of execution period. Till that time, if you don't take the security in this form, your project is not stable. And when you go for execution period, of course, you can ask for bank guarantee, but then that has to be, that whether you can get the bank guarantee, how much you can get, it all depends on the commercial viability of the project. There are other indirect securities also. Some people ask for rental security. Okay, rental security meaning, remember, never accept a condition from a developer कि हम आपको monthly PDC हर साल के पहले देंगे. हर साल के पहले क्यों? If your project is say 36 months, should ask for all 36 months checks in advance before you vacate or at the time of vacating. Or better still, what we do is that out of the 36 months, at least 12 months upfront payment and then monthly PDC for the next 24 months. But that too, those checks to be handed over to you when you vacate. So when you vacate, whether in tangible amount or in terms of some money or some bank guarantee or some area under lien or post-dated checks, and of course the developer's upfront investment to get this IOD of what is known as minimum development potential, that we will see those terms when you go to the stage of development agreement. तो ये सिक्योरिटी क्या चाहिए हमको टेंडर डॉक्यूमेंट में बताना है. एंड ऑफ कोर्स ये तो चीजें बताइए member benefit, like say I said corpus set 1,500 rupees, sir. But what should be the stages of payment of corpus, that also should be specified in the commercial bid. Maybe you want 10% at the time of signing an agreement, then another, say 30% when you vacate, 60% when you come back, whatever terms, whatever your general body has accepted, you can put those conditions in stages of payment for stage 1 and 2 also has to be a part of your commercial bid. And stages of release, payment stage, stages of payment, how the developer should pay you, and stages of release means you have taken his security, how you will be releasing that. Normally, the kind of 50 lakh security which I talked to you about, the 5 lakh plus 45 lakh which I said, for the pre-execution period. What we do is that this security is for the pre-execution period, meaning till the time the developer gets IOD and you are asked to vacate. So when the developer has performed well, उसने काम किया है, or that stage has been reached, then at that time we release that, only that security. So stages of release, this also has to be put in the tender document. And of course, a form of commercial offer, meaning ये सब offer देने के लिए the developer has to make a commitment which is a letter. I will show you that later, where he says that I have agreed your technical bid and this my commercial offer is this, and I'll be bound by this until development agreement is signed and registered. Yes. Now, as I said, now I want to give you an example of a commercial bid. Let me show you very quickly. Okay. Right. What you are seeing at, what you are looking at is part B, meaning first part A is technical bid, part B is commercial bid. Okay. This will work. Yes. Okay. Now I'll make it a little bigger so that you are still able to see that. Those of you who are on mobile might find this small. Right. So what I'm showing you is a commercial. I'm not showing you technical bid. That would be a very big thing. Maybe we'll see that later. Yeah, okay. Okay. So I'm scrolling down. I told you about the form of offers. This is the first commercial. So commercial offer, wherein the developer is addressing this letter to you, form of offer which I just explained to you. He's addressing this to you, and he's saying that Honorary Secretary, Chairperson, etc., Redevelopment Officer, we, Messrs., the bidder's name, have carefully examined the tender documents for your redevelopment project, as well as the clarifications, addenda, corrigenda issued by the society, which also form part of the respective tender document, and agree to abide by the requirements of the technical bids and the commercial bids for the redevelopment project, along with various terms and conditions therein. And then there is a lot of declarations, etc. I'll not read through this, but this is what he is agreeing to, so many terms and conditions here. And then finally he says, we unconditionally accept these commercial demands of the society which are given in this tender document, etc. And now let us go to the commercial actual bid. Here, what you see here is, first is free additional carpet area, MOFA, wall to wall. And here you can see this is left blank, so that the developer uska offer yahan dega. Now, what you see here down below, that this is a corpus which we have fixed at 1,500 rupees a square feet. This is just an example. So we have specified the corpus. We have specified the car park to be as minimum one car park. Then we have specified, I'm stressing the word specified. We have specified displacement compensation, which is the rent and time frame for 36 months, and the rent at 75 rupees per square foot. The total brokerage and registration charges at 150 rupees a square feet. ये figure मैंने जो figure दिखा है उसके ऊपर मत जाइए. This is something which this will depend on what has been agreed in your general body. Then total shifting charges are 40,000. Then stamp duty is to be entirely borne by the developer. Reimbursement of the PMC's fees 80 lakh. Reimbursement of professional fees of society lawyer 12 lakh. Additional security deposit for due performance is 38 lakh. ये 38 इसलिए है क्योंकि EMD was 2 lakh plus 38 lakh. So the additional security deposit for pre-execution period now becomes 2 plus 38, that is 40 lakh, which you have to return to be refunded along with LTE means when you vacate. Then irrevocable bank guarantee is 10 crores, which was for that particular project. Then security MOFA carpet area means some carpet area on which society will have a lien in its favor will be about 2,500 square feet of residential carpet area. Of course, they will be in form of flats. And then we say, so this, can you see here? We have actually specified everything. हमने कुछ रखा ही नहीं है. Whereas I have come across tenders where what people do, what PMC or society सब blank रखते हैं. आप imagine करो अगर सब आप blank रखेंगे तो how will you be able to compare? And it's a misconception कि सब blank रखेंगे तो builder सब ज़्यादा देगा. You know, people may, if a developer asks me, now listen to me very carefully. If a developer asks me कि are you on society asks me, okay, that कि ये आपने रखा है monthly compensation range is 75. Sometimes people ask me, even society, what if the developer wants to give 80? आप 75 क्यों रखे, कम क्यों रखे? तो उसको ओपन रखो, ठीक है? Like that, वो ये जो कॉर्पस है, आपने 1,500 क्यों रखा? What if the developer wants to give 2,500? उसको ओपन रखो. ओपन रखने से बिल्डर ज्यादा देगा. एब्सोल्युटली रॉन्ग. जितना आप टेंडर में ओपन रखेंगे थिंग्स ना, उतना आपका negotiation power कम होते जाता है, because then the developer has so many things to play with you. I'll explain, I'll give you an example, then you will understand this is the art and science of tendering. This is how a tender has to be floated. Of course, आज 1,500 मिल रहा है तो बिल्डर आपको 200, 2,000, even if a developer asks me कि you have asked for 1,500 copper, what if I want to give you 2,000? I will say, please, I don't want you. If you want to give 2,000, I understand you want to give me 500 rupees more, right? That's what you are saying. कोई बात नहीं, मुझे 500 rupees नहीं, मेरे को तो 5,000 rupees more चाहिए. I want a best offer from you. Don't ever think that I am settling for 1,500. But whatever I want in the extra area. I have not said anything there. I have not said anything that I want so much of carpet area. So I want more from you. I want more rent from you. I want more corpus, but not in the manner which you are offering. I want that everything to be accumulated and put in that carpet. Otherwise, someone gives you 75 carpet area and a different corpus. Someone gives you less corpus, more rent. This is something which confuses you. The moment you put all things as specified, okay, what the bidder knows, you will not settle for. Achha, by the way, when people say, what if they want to give you more? But my question, another thing would also be, what if I do not say, what if they give you less? At least I have said 1,500 here. Open rakha, usne 1,000 diya to. That also I don't want. I don't want more, I don't want less in that field where I have specified, but I definitely want everything more, all the commercial benefits come to me, more, but in the additional MOFA carpet area. And this is what even 79A is also saying. What they say, between the hardship compensation and the carpet area, एक चीज आप fix करो और दूसरा open रखो. This is a very intelligent step. I will give you an example, then you will be able to understand this. And by the way, it's not that you can never change this. This 1,500 है, आपको 1,000 का 2,500 करना है after negotiation, you can definitely do that. You can definitely do that. Okay, but at a later stage. But when you get the initial offer, if you do not have these benchmarks set, then you will get confused right from the beginning. Now let me give you an example, a very simple example. Okay, suppose I give you 100 rupees or say 200 rupees, and you have 200 rupees. I'll put it that way, and you go to buy fruits. 200 रुपए का आपको फल खरीदना है और आप एक फ्रूट वेंडर के पास गए और उसको आपने बोला भैया मुझे आई वांट say 3 types of fruit. I want apples, oranges and bananas. आप ये तीनों मेरे को मिक्स करके दो. You feel आपको जैसा चाहिए. 100 रुपए आपको 200 रुपए में दे रहा हूँ. इसमें से आप डिसाइड करो एप्पल कितना देना, आप डिसाइड करो ऑरेंज कितना देना है, आप डिसाइड करो केला कितना देना है. Now imagine, and then you go to, with that approach you go to 4 different vendors. Every vendor will give you a different combination depending on how he looks at it. You are not specified anything. So what he will do, एक डेवलपर आपको या एक अभी तो फ्रूट वेंडर है तो एक फ्रूट वेंडर आपको बोलेगा आई विल गिव यू, आई एम जस्ट प्लेइंग विद द नंबर्स, डोंट गो टू द रियल फ्रूट मार्केट टू एक्चुअली डू द कैलकुलेशन. सपोज ही सेड आई विल गिव यू 3 एप्पल्स, 4 ऑरेंजेस एंड 8 बनानास. ये आपका 200 रुपए का वैल्यू है आपका. ओके, नाउ यू गो टू द अदर पर्सन, he gives you 2 apples, 6 oranges, 3 bananas. बोलता है ये भी 200 रुपए का. तीसरे आप पास आते हैं, he gives you another combination. चौथे के पास है, he gives you different combination. Now, are you in a position to understand who has given you the best value for your 200 rupees? You cannot. You just cannot. Now change the scenario. What you say is that you go with the same 200 rupees and you tell the fruit vendor, I want 6 oranges, 9 bananas, and rest of them apples which you decide. So I'm fixing 2 parameters. Right? Okay. So 6 and 9 is 6 oranges, 9 bananas. I said, आप अभी मेरे को इसका बच्चे का मेरे को आप एप्पल दे दो. I have kept only one variable open. So he gives you 2 apples. Now you go to the next vendor. You give him the same thing. You tell him, I want 6 oranges, 9 bananas, rest of them apples. He gives you 4 apples. Then you go to the third one for the same 200 rupees. Do that. The other one gives you same thing, same situation. He gives you 3 apples. Now it's very crystal clear. आपको कोई दिमाग लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है कि when you have fixed the 2 parameters, the third आपको जो 4 एप्पल दे रहा है, maximum एप्पल दे रहा है, he is your man. He is your fruit vendor. Very, very simple. You have removed the uncertainty. You have removed the very fact with which builders play with you. तो आपको ये नहीं करना है. Okay, that's why you fix. I'm not saying you should fix 1500 corpus. What I'm saying, I'm not saying. What I'm saying is आपको जो भी corpus चाहिए आप इधर specify करो. कम आपको ज्यादा चाहिए 2500 specify 2500. Whatever you want you specify. Only thing what I'm saying is that let there be some fixed amount there. When the amount is fixed, developers will not be play with you so easily. Of course, ये सब जाने के बाद later on in the negotiation, at the negotiation time, अच्छा तो आपको ये पता चलता है कि आपके प्लॉट के प्रोजेक्ट को जब भी when you fix all these apples, bananas in our case, like the corpus and oranges and bananas, corpus, rent and things like that. When you fix that and we put the MOPA carpet area open, which is our oranges, तो हमको सीधा पता चलता है someone is giving 30%, someone is giving 38%, someone is giving 27%. We know very clearly that who is giving you best value for our redevelopment project. This is, and we are doing this tendering in this manner since all our practice, right from our first tender, last 18 years we've been doing very successfully. We are completely rooted on the project. We know what is happening. and we know where a particular bidder is playing mischief to begin with. Now later on, ये सब होने के बाद आप जब भी शॉर्टलिस्ट करते हैं, आगे चलते हैं, आपको पैरामीटर चेंज करना है. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल यू वांट, अरे आपको बहुत ज्यादा कारपेट एरिया मिला लेकिन कॉर्पस आपको अभी लग रहा है कम है, देन इधर और से रेंट आपको लगता है कम है, देन यू कैन निगोशिएट विद द डेवलपर कि भाई रेंट थोड़ा बढ़ा के दो. और इफ द डेवलपर डजंट एग्री, देन यू कैन से कि you can convert a part of your corpus or you can convert a part of your area into higher rate. Okay, that option will always remain with you. अब अगर आपको डेवलपर डायरेक्टली रेंट बढ़ा के 75 का 80 करके देता है, नो प्रॉब्लम, वेरी गुड, दैट could be a point of negotiation, and this skill we will see in our next webinar, how you can finally get the developer to agree to some additional points in your last meeting. लेकिन even theoretically speaking, if he doesn't say, सेकेंड हमने आपको ये दिया, अभी नहीं दे सकते, then you can still say ठीक है बाबा, रेंट नहीं दे रहे हो ज्यादा, लेकिन मेरे को रेंट तो ज्यादा भरना है, तो कॉर्पस मेरे को कन्वर्ट करके, या तो मुझे एरिया इतना, see if you are getting, say I have done one project where the extra carpet area was 60%. It's such a big number. So नहीं चाहिए हमको, उसका थोड़ा रेंट पे बढ़ा दो या सब. So that conversion can be done. How? क्या मिलेगा आपके पास है, feasibility study है. So put these numbers there, and you can even here the developer cannot play mischief with you, because you can set up, your BMC can set up a feasibility study model, and he can easily find out if 2% area you are willing to settle for 2% less carpet area, how much can it translate into additional corpus? So when I told you about, so many advantages of that also can be done. So now I think henceforth your tender should be this, that you clarify and you completely specify what you want. What you want. I'm not saying कम लगता है, ज़्यादा specify करो. But whatever you want to specify, you specify in number terms. Do not allow bidders to play with you. This is a very simple technique. Now, so this is what, okay, 75 maybe the rent, then total brokerage say maybe 150 rupees a square foot, shifting charges maybe 40 rupees per flat. Okay, we went through this now. Reimbursement of PMC expenses 80 lakh, reimbursement of professional fees of lawyer and other consultants 12 lakh. Security, I was here, 38%, 38 lakh plus 2 lakh जो 40 lakh आपका बन गया. Yeah, I think we went through this. Now coming to the stage of release of payment. Then you specify corpus which is hardship compensation. आपको किस तरह से देना है. Displacement compensation means rental, आपको किस तरह से देना है. Okay, this is what I am showing you is a sample. Rent आप हमने यहाँ एग्री ऐसा एक्सेप्ट मांगा है कि first 12 months we want upfront. Then 8, like for the next 24 months period, 8 quarterly post-dated checks. They can be monthly, they can be quarterly, whatever you decide. Brokerage and registration to be paid, or everything to be paid at the time of vacating. Keep that in mind. It may be a post-dated check. And one point, let me tell you here. Look at this one. The last part of corpus is to be paid to you. अपना project 36 months का है. What normally people say, हम आपको OC पे देंगे, occupancy certificate. Now what it means, OC कौन लाने वाला है? Builder लाने वाला है. So what अगर जो builder लाने वाला है उसी के ऊपर आपने उसको control दिया, तो suppose the OC doesn't come for 5 years, you don't get this payment. So in our tender, these are fine points. In our tender, what we have written, just look at this very carefully. If you want, I'll just make it little bigger. What we have written is on full OC or 36 months. Why? The project period of 30, he was supposed to give OC, bring OC in 36 months. So what we are saying is that on full OC or at 36 months from vacating, whichever is earlier. Now, even if your project is delayed by 6 months or 1 year, your corpus doesn't get delayed. I think you have understood this point here. Just, there are some fine points. There are many, of course, but everything cannot be covered in a. Now this is how society payment PMC का fee सब कुछ इसमें डाल दो पैसा क्या चाहिए कैसा चाहिए in what stages full clarity reimbursement of PMC fees reimbursement of professional fees etc and then contact details of the developer. So what I just explained to you is a typical commercial bid. Now let us proceed with the yes. Now let us see the bidding process. First is floating the tender, which I just explained to you. Then okay. Now let's have a little bit about 12:30. Okay, a little bit about tell you a little bit about the time frame for this bidding process. Now tender sale, once you float the tender, आप generally sale के लिए 2 हफ्ता दे सकते. Now I want you to come out of the misconception. ज्यादा पीरियड रहेंगे तो ज्यादा टेंडर बिक जाएगा, कभी नहीं होता. Tenders get sold, most of them on the last day of the period. And अगर आपने 1 महीना रखा तो nobody is going to look at come to you for first day and purchase the tender. वो late में आएंगे और by the time if your period is so large then they might even forget, they may even forget to purchase the tender. So don't give too much time for selling tender. 2 weeks is a good enough. You have put an advertisement in the newspaper, people remember, right? But they don't remember for a month. Okay, then you have to, after the tender is sold for two weeks, then you give them 3 more days to visit the site, additional 3 more days. वो पहले 2 हफ्ते में भी आ सकते हैं to come to for site inspection and document inspection at the society. Then they for 4 more days. So that is A plus 1 week. That means 4 more days from B. What you do is that they should give us their queries if they have any on the tender document. Then you call a pre-bid meeting, which I explained to you. In pre-bid meetings, you would discuss their queries, answer their queries, have a healthy discussion, put them at ease, give them confidence that, well, that this is a fair and transparent process. So queries के बाद 3 दिन में आप pre-bid meeting बुला सकते हैं. और उसके बाद अगर if you feel like that amendments need to be issued, then the common set of amendments. Why is it called common set of amendments? Because the amendments will be based on the questions asked by all the bidders on a common platform, and the amendments will go to all the bidders. So that is why it is called CSA. There's a common set of amendment, and then after releasing the amendments, the last amendment, give them 2 more weeks, and then they bring they submit the bid, which in our project, see, if you go by 79A, वो आपको बोलते हैं 2 हफ्ते में उसको खोलना है. But what we do is that एक बार bid आ गया उसको रख के कोई फायदा नहीं. In fact, अगर कमिटी रखती है, then there can be gossip of different kind. So what we normally do, mostly on the same day of submission, if the tenders are to be accepted up to 5 o'clock, we open them at 6 o'clock. Okay, that is also pre-scheduled. Remember, the tendering schedule has to be fixed right from the beginning. और आप जितना उसको follow करेंगे उतना आपका आगे project अच्छा होगा. Now let me take you to our website where this has been. Yeah, here. So this is the tendering process. This is the tendering and developer selection. Okay, I came here from the from the home page, and we have already completed feasibility study. So we are at the second phase. And if you see the roadmap here, there is a tendering is one part which is the subject of today's webinar, and this is going to be the subject of the next webinar. So if you see here how the tender process is also there, it is explained here. टेंडर प्रोसेस कैसा होना है, टेंडर डॉक्यूमेंट में क्या क्या होता है, दैट ऑल्सो टेक्निकल बिल में दिया है इधर. इफ यू से मोर देन yeah, so tendering and technical bid and commercial bid, so you are able to see what goes into technical bid and commercial bid. Now you also have your evaluation and selection on process and bid evaluation report, जो हम next webinar में करने वाले हैं. So now let me take the roadmap here. Tendering. So what you see here is a step-by-step process. थोड़ा मैं इसको बड़ा ही कर दूं. Right. Okay. You see. Letter for preparation of tender document, which the managing committee should give to the PMC. Then the PMC will submit draft tender documents to MC. Then the managing committee will have its own meeting to discuss the tender documents with PMC. And based on that discussion, the PMC may revise its tender document and submit to managing committee. Thereafter, okay. अगर आपने पहले ही प्रॉपर्टी डॉक्यूमेंट्स कुछ बाकी है, रिमेंबर दिस, कुछ प्रॉपर्टी डॉक्यूमेंट्स आपके बाकी है और ऐसा हुआ है सपोज कि आपने फिजिबिलिटी रिपोर्ट करने के बाद 1 साल चला गया, देन यू बिफोर यू गो टू क्लोज द टेंडर, रिमेंबर इफ योर प्रॉपर्टी कार्ड्स मीनिंग सीटीएस प्लान, डीपी रिमार्क्स, पीआर कार्ड्स, ऑल दिस, अगर आपके पास पुराना है, पुराना मीन्स पुराना हो गया, to start you bought new that time but पुराना अभी हो गया, then I think what you should do is that you should obtain the fresh cards, fresh property cards, because they can change. We have actually experienced this. Never be under the impression that whatever property cards you, I'm not talking property cards, sorry, property documents. CTS plan may not change, TP remarks can change, but CTS plan also I have seen changing in one of my projects. सब कुछ change हो सकता है. And when you are going for tendering and when you are disclosing everything to the bidder, it's a good practice that अगर आपका the property documents are old, please obtain the new property documents. Then what you do is that send notice for the next HDPM, and then you conduct next HDPM, जिसमें आपका टेंडर बीएमसी एक्सप्लेन करेगा important points. If you have already given the tender documents to your members, you can ask their queries. फिर आपने पढ़ा है तो आपका कोई queries है तो then you resolve that, and you pass 3 regulations. Number 1 is approval of tender documents. That tender documents have been approved. Okay. If there are some revisions suggested by members, then you also make a resolution which are the approved revisions which have to be incorporated in the tender document. And finally, the consent of the members. I mean, I would say resolution only कि भैया आप tender float करो. So these are the resolutions to be passed. Then, of course, the minutes of meeting वो तो देना ही आपको. Then send project brief to the tender prospective bidders. What we do, this is our practice, and you know that what you are given in the website is our practice. So what we also do is that एक पूरे tender document के ऊपर we prepare a 1-page brief of important points from the bidder's perspective, and we send and we give that to society so that the society can send it to different people. In fact, we put it on our website. Society can also put it on their website, so that 1 page tells the summary, tells the bidders more about what is there in the tender, and they can be more inclined to
परचेज द टेंडर, बिकॉज नहीं तो भाई सवाल ये आता है कि भाई मैं क्यों टेंडर लूँ, उसमें कैसा मुझे थोड़ी मालूम है, वो टेंडर लेने के बाद ही मालूम पड़ेगा. सो टू अवॉइड दैट सिचुएशन, व्हाट वी डू इज दैट we release one page brief, which we have found to be very effective, and well, that's what we send it by email also for our clients. We send emails from our we put it on our website. We send emails. We send by WhatsApp to all those developers database, whatever we are having. From our previous experience, we do that. Like the society can also send the same page to their members. Members can send to their groups. So that is like, you know, telling the world कि हमारे पास अभी टेंडर है, आप आके इसको खरीद लो. So then comes the sale of tender documents, correct? Then display the list of, अच्छा sale होने के बाद आप display, managing committee will display the list of tenders sold on the society notice board. Then there is a pre-bid meeting. Then there is a pre-bid meeting is here. Then there is a pre-bid meeting. उसके बाद amendments, उसके बाद submission of bids. Submission कैसे करने का उसका भी एक तरीका हम लोग टेंडर में ही लिखते हैं. Then the notice for opening of bids, which is already issued कि भाई हम ये टेंडर जो bids आए हैं हम उसको sealed bids on this day at this place at this time we will be opening, and then the bids are opened, and after opening the bids, okay, whatever, you know, bids are opened and important points in each bid. The PMC आपको commercial bid का important points है ना, सबका क्या offer है, he will call out, मतलब announce करेगा. Not everything can be read in the tender opening. Remember that, because what you ask for, एक तो बड़ा tender document है, उसके साथ developer का credentials आपने मांगा है, his company profile है, it's such a fact thing. So that is not, everything is not to be looked at that. And so what is normally done in the tender opening meeting is this, that whether the tenders are sealed, whether there is an EMD of the requisite amount. If अगर EMD नहीं है तो bid is rejected, and EMD होने के बाद फिर we open the commercial bid, and we also open the technical bid, and we check whether he has signed the undertaking, whether he has signed on important pages of the tender document, okay, the technical bid. And as regards the commercial bid, wherever we have pre-specified so many things, like say 1,500 is the corpus, 75 is the range, etc. तो जो भी specify किया है उसके अलावा जो नहीं specify किया है, that's the carpet area. What is the bidder's offers? That is announced, that is read out, you know. As well as if the developer जो उसको नहीं करना चाहिए कि उसने corpus 1,500 cancel करके 1,000 किया है, then he has made a deviation to the tender. So if he has done something like that, that also is announced. So every tender थोड़ा ये इतना ही एक announcement होता है. उसके बाद the papers are put back in the big envelope. Then the society takes the EMD, and all the papers are given to the PMC. फिर वो PMC की टीम, मतलब हम अगर PMC तो हम लेके आते हैं, so that we can do our further work on the basis of that. और ये commercial bid का एक कॉपी उधर, उसका commercial bid का 2 कॉपी बना देते हैं, मतलब वहीं पे जो है उसके लाइक, you know, photocopies or photos or whatever. So one remains with the society, other one goes to the PMC, and in this entire process, the society as well as society के managing committee members, they will sign certain documents कि हमने tender open किया है, etc. Some bids sealed है कि नहीं, that is also checked right in the beginning, but through one officer. Okay, so this is what we do in a bidding process. Now, let me tell you what are the milestones in this. Let's go to the milestones. Okay, इसमें से remember this, only there are one, first milestone is approval of tender document. उस stage पे आज पहुंच गए. Second milestone is floating the tender. Why? Because now you are going into the open market. And third milestone is opening bids. Okay. Now, 4th, 5th, 6th milestones will be relevant for the next webinar. Now, records. What records are created in tendering process? Okay. Tender documents, common set of amendments, and minutes of meeting of HGBM 4. Which is HGBM 4? For approval of tender. Okay. These are the records which are created. These are important binding records which are binding on areas which are created in this space. Then there are many guideposts. हमने देखा होगा आपके roadmap में हमने देखा. There are so many guideposts. Okay, maybe I should go to the roadmap to show you that at the tendering stage. Right. You see here on the right hand side. Submit draft tender documents, either require guidepost here. Okay. Guidepost means there is some additional information. If you click on that, you will be taken to that you know. Then there is next guidepost is इधर देखिए आप 11th में floating tender. There, what is that guidepost? कि newspaper में ad किस तरह का होना चाहिए. You can follow that. Then the next नहीं sorry. हाँ, press notice का content क्या होना चाहिए. Then the next guidepost is here on 12th. Project brief जो मैंने बोला ना, एक पेज का project brief में क्या क्या होना चाहिए. So these are the guidelines which you can use. Then there is one more guide. There are many more actually. Sale of tender documents. आप sale करें तो उसका record कैसा रखना है. फिर pre-bid meeting में क्या क्या होता है. Another guidepost. Then issue of amendments में कैसे amendments में क्या क्या issue होता है. And submission of bids में किस तरह से how we maintain the record of submission, receipt of bids, and finally notice देना है, sorry notice नहीं, opening of bids, how the bids are to be opened. There are so many guideposts for this because this is such a delicate stage of our project, and the same guideposts you can find in this tendering. Sorry. In the tendering, if you go. Let me see if I am able to open this. Correct. Correct. You see all these guideposts. See all these guideposts. First guidepost, second guidepost, whatever we saw. These are the kind of checkpoints for you. इसको लेके आप आपका project कर सकते हैं. Now, as I said, do's and don'ts, we haven't put them yet. So let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. क्या हो गया भैया? Okay. Bidding process I explained. This also explained. Milestone explain किया, record explain किया, guidepost explain किया. So I am at the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for listening to me.